Actually, it is very time consuming, and I do have a passion, but I understand the importance of having a responsible legislature going to Helena that represents our district. You know, we have a really important session coming up. I mean, every session is important, but the next one is very important. With our economy just slowly trickling back, you know, housing prices are coming back up, foreclosures are going back down, the economy's coming back up, unemployment's dropping. We have a good opportunity to shore up the economy in Montana. The last legislature kind of dropped the ball doing that. They didn't pass the bonding bill. I mean, that would have been 3,000 jobs in Montana. I think we need a good representative who's just not going to go vote, just push a button. But we need a representative who's going to represent East Helena, represent the constituents of East Helena and the people of East Helena. For the last 12 years, I have been representing East Helena on the school board. 7 for East Helena and 5 on the Helena School Board. I have vast budgeting experience. You know, we are responsible to balance the budget for schools, and I do that. Helena Public Schools has a $52 million budget, and we balance that to the penny every year. And I'm fiscally responsible.
Okay. Tell me about the difference then between you and your opponent when it comes to whatever differences you have.
Well, I have a connection in East Helena. I sit on several local boards. I sit on several statewide boards, and I listen to my constituents. I'm going door to door. I've been, last election cycle, I hit about 15,000 doors, and this election cycle I have over 5,000 doors. And talking to the people, find out what's important, and what's important to them is getting a job, getting the economy going, and get good paying jobs in Montana. Whether it's responsible resource development or you know, just get the bonding bill passed. I talked to one guy who said, you know what, if that bonding bill had passed, I'd had a job right now. But because of that, I'm laid off. My employer can't put me back to work right now. East Helena, we had a meeting there last week, which Gibson didn't even show at. 1,800 acres of ASARCO land is going to be put up for development in the next couple of years. That's huge. You know, light industry and manufacturing that's coming out, and we need to be there. We need to be in the legislature to support that. The big thing is the requirements, the constitutional requirements of any legislature is one, to balance the budget. That's it. That's the only requirement. They could come in, meet for a week, balance the budget, and they could go home. But they have other business in the state. You know, they have fishing and hunting businesses or industries that they need to do. The only statutory requirement they need to do is they need to do an inflationary increase to schools, to school funding. Last time they did that, but then they passed a bill that if the governor vetoed it, it would take school funding away, the inflationary raise to school funding. And he vetoed it because, and I agree with him, we shouldn't take hard rock mining money and bed tax money and put it into schools. It's not what it was their intended purpose for. And so he vetoed that, and it decreased school funding. The schools had to go back and sue to require the legislature to do inflationary adjustment to school funding. And we need someone in the legislature who's going to stand up and say, you know what, this is our responsibility. Funding is, education funding is huge for the state of Montana. There's actually a correlation between education funding and corrections. And if you look at the last probably 20 years, education funding as a percentage of the total general fund budget, education funding is decreasing while corrections is increasing. And if you look at corrections, 80% of those guys going there are not educated.
What's the main differences then between you and your opponent, and why do you think people should vote for you versus him?
Because I'm going to represent our district. If you look at Project Vote Smart, I got on the internet last night and looked at Project Vote Smart. The funding that is listed under Project Vote Smart for my opponent, 76% of the people that are funding him are lobbyists. And if you look at mine, I have one union who sent me a check and the rest are people. And I'm going to go out there and represent people. You know, I sit on 7 statewide boards. I represent education. I represent hunting and fishing issues statewide. I'm very knowledgeable in the education issues. And every time the legislature meets, it seems like education loses. We have to fight to get what is a requirement for state law for education funding. And that's not right. That's not what we should do. We should fund education first.